maybe the wine is not strong enough. Sorry for the mistake here. The wine is not strong enough. Do you take a white wine with a steak? Well, it's too weak. And a red wine with a fish, it feels very weird on the mouth. So a very fine wine, super expensive one, if you don't use it with the right dish, it perceived as a bad wine. So when we think about a wine versus a meal, we have to think about the wine type, the usage, and the context. For example, if you use it with a pasta, you won't use the same white wine if you use with a very spicy pasta versus a more sweet pasta. So the pairing is just as important as the quality of the wine. Why that matters? For wine and for biochar is the same thing. If you don't use it for the right at the right place, it's gonna be perceived as a bad biochar, and we see it very often. So it's gonna give poor performance in agronomy if we use it in the soil, and then you will lose trust. It's gonna damage your market, and damaging a market is very difficult to come back. As with the Minnesota Biochar Initiative, we agree. I'm gonna talk mostly about, actually only about agricultural application of biochar. I'm not gonna address other application, but the same process is very is you can approach it the same way. So when biochar is not properly chosen, it's either because the chemical properties, the physical properties is not correct, or it's in not the appropriate form, or it's not the appropriate environment. So let's see what we should do. We should do the right matching. And to do the right matching, you have to look at the soil, the plant, the climate, the logistic, the regulation, the handling, and the equipment. You certainly don't want to have a biochar that nobody can apply because it doesn't have the same form. So if you use it in a field, and we are going to take example very soon, if you want to use it in a field and the farmers to who you address, they all apply, they're at, they spread it out to the field with, let's say, a compost or a manure spreader, and you arrive and you have a very dense pellets, it may not do the job. Or if you want to, they all apply, let's say, in a liquid furrow with no till, and you want to have a densified pellets, it may not work. You may have a very good biochar, but it's just the form is not right. So you have to really match the purpose with all properties of your char. So let's take here an example. I have strawberries. You all know strawberries. Strawberries, what they want? Strawberries, they like acidic soil, well drained, sandy, consistent moisture. They are super exigent about low salinity, very delicate nutrient balance. And they are cultivated in row, oftentimes a 2-year production, and there's straw on the top. So what kind of properties of the biochar will you put? So if you put a biochar, which most of biochar are, they are very basic with a pH 9 or 8, 9, 10. I mean, you're gonna stress your plants. So somehow your biochar property has to has a lower pH, very low salinity, very little ash, and a size that is kind of easy to mix with the sandy soil, very good water suction, but yet it has to drain. And you have to incorporate it into the soil. Of course, the second year you cannot incorporate that. So you have to think about it. I have to incorporate before I put the plants. And so you see that there are properties that has to be addressed for these plants. I gave one plant, we can use all kind of plants. So for strawberry, what do we manage? We manage precision chemical and physical properties for strawberries. If we look at chicken litter, for example, what do we want for chicken litter? We want high water suction, we want a suction of ammonia, there's a coarse particle size, loose particle, pH, not too sensitive, for as long as it's not toxic because they are gonna eat it. So what kind of biochar properties we want? water sorption, very high water sorption with high surface area. Coarse material, pH, not too important. Salinity, not too important. Ash content, not too bad. We want a loose form, but no dust. No dust. That is very important. And what do? We mix it with a litter. So what do we manage for a biochar in chicken litter? It's really completely different from a strawberry. So a biochar that may do very good in chicken litter will probably do very bad in strawberries. So not only because its physical properties and in chemical properties, but also because of his format. If we look at liquid manure, for example, liquid manure, what do we want with liquid manure? Odor, nitrogen, reducing nitrogen loss to keep as much as possible in the liquid when we will apply it, and favor a microbial respiration, digestion, and avoid settling and crusting. Because when we pump it, we don't want to be stuck with a bunch and crust. So for liquid manure, what is important? It has to be robust, high absorption, cheap, and a material that goes very well into the pumping system and that will not clog the pumping system. So the biochar, we certainly want a high surface area, a high sorption capacity, at least for the nutrients, and a very good porosity. Why the porosity? Because the bacteria, they go inside it and they make cluster, and those cluster move inside the system, and it stir it, and it's like a five-star hotel for the bacteria. And the form and the format needs to be super precise because you need a density of the pellets that will float within your system. So if it's completely on the top and if it sink, doesn't work. It has to float within your water. So the density of your pellet will have to be very specific. And the pH, no problem. Salinity, not too much of a problem. Ash, not too sensitive. So what do we manage with the liquid manure? Is we manage emission, nutrients, and stability, and floatability. There is another thing that I didn't put there. It's also, people also call it the C over N ratio. C over N ratio, and if I talk to an agronomist, they look at the organic material, compost, and this kind of thing, and they will say they will measure the total carbon and they will measure the total nitrogen, and they will do the ratio, C over N ratio, and at some point when the ratio is good enough, okay, the compost is ready. If we use the C over N ratio as you are used to do it here, it will not work. Because what do we want here? It's the available carbon for the bacteria. So it's going to be the carbon in a volatile phase over the nitrogen ratio. That's it. If you use the complete carbon, most of the carbon is stable and it will use a hotel for the bacteria, but it doesn't have influence per se on the digestion. So you have to be super careful on the carbon type that you are considering in your solution. So you see that three applications, three completely different biochar, and we don't worry about the same thing. So here, if we take restoration, soil restoration, the soil is compacted, there's a plow pan, you have low root penetration, you have gullies irrigation, erosion, and you have low carbon content. Often this is kind of this is kind of soil that is addressed by the 336 program. So what kind of biochar properties will we need for that? Very high fixed carbon content because we want it to be able to withstand the compaction. High over say ratio, very high, high porosity, sorption capacity for nutrients that is high, as low as possible for the salinity because oftentimes when it's compacted, oftentimes it depends on the states here in the United States, but it could be because of salinity. The ash content, not so sensitive. Application method, that will be very, very, very important because you have to address the application method to design what format will have your biochar. And you will want to apply it maybe once a year for several years in a row. And maybe after 4 or 5 years, you will be able to see a very good improvement of your soil. And you have to be careful here. You have to be patient. Contrarily to chicken, where the impact you have to think about today what the chicken needs. In this long-term agricultural soil restoration is more like a 4 or 5 year work. So you have to think about long-term. And you want to improve the structure, the stability of the carbon, and you want to enhance biological functions. So you don't address here the same properties and the same format as you do for the other application. So for application, for different biochar. And here's some matching properties. Row crop, potting mix, feed additive, litter. You see that it's all different biochar. So the one that is good for one application may not be good for the next application. And the other thing that is super important to consider, everybody, most of the time is the first mistake that the biochar will make when they produce a biochar. They will think that their biochar is ready. So when it come out from the machine, oh, it's a good biochar. The lab told me it's 90% carbon. Well, I would say more than 90% of the time you have post-processing to do. Either because you have to have a specific particle size distribution, or you need a moisture correction, a pH correction, you need to blend it with something else, you need to charge it, you need to pelletize, densify, or you need to package. And all of this, oftentimes, unfortunately, they have to do it. So the more specific the application, the more specific your post processing will be, and the value of the biochar really comes from the post processing. So if you have a good biochar for starting with, let's say a high carbon content, low ash values, and this kind of things, if you don't package it and you don't provide the right size, or you don't charge it first and you want to put it at the same time as a seedling, you have a problem. It will compete for the nitrogen, right? Um, so the post-processing, I have some clients, I can give you an example here. One client that is, now it's autonomous, it's not my client anymore. It's developed. They developed a biochar for water treatment for frog production. Laugh, it's very tiny market, but very high price products. And they took 2 years to have the right, exactly the right product. And another of my client has is biochar is the Ford F-150 in the United States is the most, I think, the most frequently used truck pickup in the United States. In the seats of the pickup, there is biochar that is made by one of my clients, and it took 3 years to develop the product. And if you think about horticulture, for example, you take BC Biocarbon, and what I'm saying is all is public stuff. BC Biocarbon sell to Sungrow, but it took a couple of years or more to get exactly what Sungrow wanted for its potting mix. So it's very important to put time and effort to understand the real needs of the clients. So frequent mistake, too high application rate, the pH is not adjusted, it's not compatible with the equipment of the user. It's too dry, there's a lot of airborne particles causing a lot of issues with the neighbors, or the employees don't want to use it because it's too dusty, it's dirty. And without densification, a lot of biochar too expensive to transport, they make too much dust, or they are not compatible with the equipment. Raw biochar, oftentimes you need to charge it to go to put that in the soil if you want to put it at the same time on the seedling or the plants. Um, Oftentimes, contaminants are ignored, and that could be some contaminants, and you want to make sure that there's no contaminants for the application that you are doing. And oftentimes people will oversell the short-term influence, and the farmers will not see any impact right, on the first weeks, first months, or first season, depending of the application. And then it's like you oversell, and if you oversell, you kill your market. And oftentimes the application method is not appropriate. So I like to see that the biochar does not fail, but the mismatch does. So key takeaways for that: biochar is a functional material. Application drive the design. Most failure come from a mismatch. The post processing is essential. Don't think you're gonna go away with that. And the market success is, of course, quality that is consistent, the performance, and the design. So a good pairing creates value. A bad pairing destroys it, with whether it's wine or biochar. Now you understand the link with the wine, right? So another takeaway: think about the 4M: mismatch, misapplication, misunderstanding, and missing data. Keep the 4M in your mind. This is really a rules to make a good biochar at the right place, at the right time, with the right form. So, is biochar designed for use, or do you hope to find one for your biochar? How do you handle that? Thank you very much. So, I will stop the sharing here. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Jim, do we want to open up the floor for questions?
Yes, I've been looking through the just apologize. I was just looking through for any questions in the chat here. Don't see anything here, but it was a fantastic presentation, Suzanne. It's definitely a topic, as we said beforehand, that is it comes up all the time. And we have Dr. Cecilia from Kenya. Would you like to go ahead and ask your question? Good to see
Hi,
you back.
Suzanne. Thank you. This is one of the most engaging deep dives into biochar. And to your point about generic uses, we're getting a lot of questions in Kenya. The CDR market is just starting. So we're getting a lot of questions from those who have started in the agricultural sector saying, oh, what pellet size do I need? What particle size do I need so I can just put it into concrete? Or how do I use this for energy? You'd started mentioning some of the automotive. What should people think about in terms of, is it, pairing in inorganic is different from pairing in organic? What should people be thinking about?
Yeah, I think that the first thing is that it's to target a market. So if you go to multiple markets, you will have multiple products to be developed. So I think it's really identify which market you want to go, talking with those market, understanding the equipment they use, the requirement that they have, and oftentimes it goes with a mixture. Let's say for concrete, it goes in a mixture of concrete, and if it goes in soil, it goes to, the mixtures with the soil. So you have to understand the particle size and how you will be mixing it with it. Like for concrete, you will have additional another chemical that you will have to add to make sure it's spreading well within the concrete. So it's really to discuss and have close relationship with the people that will buy it, so that you fully understand how you should prepare the product. I hope it answers your question. Thank you.
Oh, that was a great question, great answer. And next we have Ryan from Gray Cloud Rhizomes.
Hello, hello. Yeah, my name is Ryan Olander. I'm with Great Cloud Rhizomes Cooperative. We're a worker cooperative who is also a cannabis microbusiness here in St. Paul, Minnesota. There's a big movement, well, not a big movement, but a subsect of the cannabis cultivators who use living soil. So biochar is one of the main components to store nutrients and also give fertile place for microbes, fungi, and bacteria to grow. However, what Great Cloud Rhizomes is doing is using the biochar to cultivate, but after using the cannabis biomass to produce biochar. And because of its high hollow cellulose to lignin ratio, it can be a good electrode material that's comparable to mined graphite. So hypothetically, it could replace mined graphites in supercapacitors or batteries. It's difficult to find research on this. I'm wondering if you know of any folks who are looking at biochars that kind of have the same makeup as cannabis, who are using it to produce some sort of electrode material or doing that research.
Yeah, there are groups. There are groups in New Zealand and in Europe and in the United States for graphene-based biochar. I don't remember the name of. There is a group, and actually, I think in Minnesota you have a. You want to. There's a program to develop graphene.
Yes.
So maybe if you want to put them in contact, because there are some in the United States, there's another group. It's a graphene type of association, and they are using some of them using biochar to make graphene, but it's still in
It
the
would,
research development. It's not commercially yet.
yeah, Suzanne, thank you. And I want to mention here Mark Ritchie, who is on the call, who at least was on the call here, is interested in working and is working in the graphene sphere. And so that would be a good one, and Ryan, to connect with. And Mark, yep, there's Mark right here, and he is in Minnesota as well. So, and he is an active board member at MNBI and a valued member, I should say. And so hopefully you two can connect. And Nikos, we'll get you and Misty next, and then I have a call in the chat from Marshall. Go ahead, Nikos.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you very much. Very, very interesting presentation. Very insightful. And it's. I would like to make the literal parallelism between wine and biochar by asking whether it is possible to use vineyard pruning residues and return them by after making them biochar to the soil, to the vineyard soil, and whether this is applicable and beneficial to the cultivation.
If there is one place that biochar works well, it's in vineyard. And you can see it in California and in Germany. It's very efficient and people do it, yes.
Is it the same with olive groves by using olive tree pruning as a material?
Usually, most of the trees, fruit trees, and it's all good material for making biochar and even returning to the same field, because what the trees are extracting from the soil, there's always a different ratio of nutrients. Then you turn them back. The only thing you don't turn back is the nitrogen. So the ratio responds to the crop needs because that's what they extract, right? So returning the waste of the same crop is a good thing.
And it's very cost efficient as well. It cuts down logistics costs, which is very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And Nikos, I should say, I mentioned right across the Mediterranean from you, the Italian Biochar Association, ECHAR, is actively working on it. And I had the chance last fall to visit a vineyard in Tuscany, growing the Chianti grapes, the Sangiovese, that were using biochar or vineyard cuttings for vineyard biochar production. And they also use olive wood trimmings. So
Yes,
I can connect you with that organization. They're right across the Mediterranean
of course, we have the
Adriatic Sea.
same challenges.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be very familiar with your operations, and you're right. Actually, Claudia Common and her group down in Giesenheim have been very active in this field as well, in the German biochar or German society or German winemaking. And that's actually the basis of some of my original work in Afghanistan, was dealing with grape production. So
Great.
in biochar trimmings. That's
Thanks very much,
fantastic.
Jim.
And Misty.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much. And Jim, what a great discussion, a critical discussion. And wanted to just kind of add a bit in the reality check. Those who know me know I try to, stay in it. And right now I swim in piles of biochar because I'm moving it and taking in as much as I can and building the market. And I tell you, if you're going to go make biochar, you're going to need to get out there and make some demonstration sites, because it's about taking it to the farm first and getting it into the soil. And it means that you have to really step out there and play in it and discover. And like Suzanne makes a point, you've really got to take a point of where you're at, because no matter what, that biochar is going to make an impact. That's what we promote. So that point,
we missed
I
you.
wanted to just, I'm swimming in it. Is I almost don't. Yep.
That's okay.
you
We
hear me?
lost you for a second.
Oh, sorry. I was getting a little hyped up.
Well, just start from the beginning.
As I kind of swim in the market build and collecting it and ensuring that it really maintains its value point, the reality is I also I hardly have the capital to really pick it up. You don't pick it up because it does go to the air, and there's realities and responsibility in that dust. But the truth is, there's like 3 products in that biochar, and it's reckless for us to just not really consider the conscious consideration of what we're dealing with in its dust factor, but also its value factor in those pieces. And the more we step into this hand-to-hand place, this field study, it becomes a field study, the data gets solid, and the carbon gets really watched during the process, and therefore the value gets built. And the other side of it is we do start to step further into the variance of the biochar, which is so built into the feedstock, the technology, and how they deal with it as it's coming out. I love it. I love every bit of it, but every bit of it's different. And I think to just not run at the industry to go make biochar, to make biochar or to get it into the industry, which, hemp, cannabis, and graphene, it's that world, but that is not where you start. And no biochar starts there.
Misty, that's some great points. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will just add on it. Thank you, Misty. That when I said that you are gonna have to go to post-processing. Most of the time you will have to do either grinding and or sieving. And everyone, as she said very well, every one fraction, the fine, the medium, and the coarse has a value, and it has a different market. So you are not building up when you do produce biochar, or when you buy biochar, you need to know what you buy, and you need to be very exigent on what you buy to make sure that you don't get a product that is so dusty that you will have to grind it yourself, or you will have to sieve it and trash half of it. So when you sell it, you really have to be careful in finding the right market for each part. And don't forget that the fine, it's often the most valuable one. Thank you, Misty.
And the most dangerous, I would say, in the realm of back in the time of farmers and black lungs. I mean, come on. It is the most, and I see even in my team, they first ran at it without masks. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We don't think about it. We're just like, innovation.
Actually, the finer, the more risky a fire and explosion. You know that biochar is one of the 3 parts for making explosive. So be careful with that.
No, some great parts, and don't give anybody ideas about gunpowder now.
Well, it's on the recipe. It's on the it's one of the 3 ingredients for gunpowder.
Oh yes. I had never thought about that. Well, we have another question in the chat from Marshall, and that is preparing biochar for use in industrial fill, similar to concrete or otherwise, less demanding than soil applications?
Is it a question or?
Yes, yeah, is preparing biochar for use as an industrial fill, is it less demanding than making it for a soil application?
It depends what kind of application that you do, because if you do it in asphalt, it will accept a lot of ash, and pH don't care too much, but the carbon type, the format will be more exigent than if you put, for example, for a garden soil. Um, if you go to concrete, the particle size will be super important, very important, and it will have to be super homogeneous. And you will have to do mechanical strength and other properties that we don't often measure for soil. So it's not that simple or that easy. I think you have to go with maybe with your network, what you are used to work with. If you have a very good network of people of confidence that you can work with in the concrete or asphalt or agriculture, I would suggest you start with this, because those people will help you to define the right properties for your char. But saying it's easier, I wouldn't say that.
And just as a note here along the way, that is very good points on that. Uh, Martin from Germany has put in here of that graphene made from rice husks is 200 times stronger than steel. And he puts has a link to an article or YouTube video on that in the chat. And also Joe from Beyond Description Farms is check out Napachar doing biochar work in California vineyards. And there's some others. Dan from UK is biochar in orchards and vineyards can be added via deep into the soils with air injection, and includes that. So there's a lot of things in here. But Alexis has a question. Is there a preferred market for biochar made from pecan shells? Would it be better applied in the commercial agriculture market or green-friendly development with landscape architect designs?
Pecan is like hardwood. It makes very good biochar in general. It depends, of course, of your technology and how you prepare that. So I would think there is no better market for both. So it's really, you really have to, I think it would have go to where there's a bigger value. Pecan biochar is, it's probably, it is, you're gonna be able to get a good value for that, because the quality of the char would expect, high carbon content, low ash, if it's well done. So you would have access to both market. It's a question of volume and pricing, and the price will go more in the other market than agricultural market. That's what I think.
And it should note as well, I've received a lot of interest lately in almond shells, which I'd assume would be very similar, except I found that the analysis came back with fairly high in potassium. So just as a note, I don't know if Suzanne, if that's been your experience as well, or if you had other experience with almonds.
Well, all the nutshells, if you look at Coregen and other producer that do nutshell here in the United States, all nutshells make very good biochar for agriculture, for different application. So it's, I mean, I don't know. It's you have to look at the quality of your char, but nutshell, I wouldn't be scared to use it to just about anything, for as long as the format and the physical properties are adjusted to but the chemical properties should be, you should be able to reach the chemical properties of most of the application. It's the physical and the format that you have to apply to check for the nutshell based biochar.
Fantastic points. And Dan, again, from UK, is mentioning that they transport their biochar at 25 to 30% moisture to reduce the risk of dust or ignition. And though some material users don't want to receive damp biochar, but does reduce the transport risk.
And
Yeah,
if I could say, I was going to say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Oh,
adding moisture to your biochar help for the against the dust, that's for sure. But sometimes it doesn't flow enough well in the equipment. So you have to be careful. And other times, I mean, just to remove the dust, you may want to densify it, make pellets of this kind of things. And if you put too much water and it stay a long time in the storage, over time it will develop fungi and certain, microorganism that it's not better for health. So you have to be careful into this equilibrium. You can put a lot of water, but then you have to sell it fast so that it doesn't have time to develop all those fungi.
No, that's great points. I wouldn't have thought about that the microbial part of it. And just one caveat here is that Marshall said I attributed a question to Marshall, but I thought it was his email with someone else. So I think Marshall wishes he had asked that. Yeah, so anyways, I think it's MCM, and I gave you wrong credit there for your question. And Misty, we'll get right to you here, but before this, I want to get to Jim White. Suzanne, can you speak to the need to pre-charge biochar with nutrients before applying to soils?
Yeah, this is a very important point. You can pre-charge or you cannot pre-charge. It's your choice. But if you don't pre-charge, you need to make sure that you will give at least 3 weeks before you will plant or you will seed something, because the biochar, if you don't pre-charge it, it will absorb the nutrients surrounding it, and so it will delay the growth of the plant that you will put there, because it will immobilize some of the nutrients and then slowly release it. And when the roots go to it, it will go and pick it up. So if you want to apply it and be ready, for the farmers or for gardeners to use it, you have to pre-charge it. And pre-charge it, you can use compost. We have a composter here in this meeting today with Pam. And so you can put it with compost, or you can apply some nitrogen. You can mix it with liquid fertilizer. There's different ways that you can do it. But if you want to be easy for your user, let's say it's a B2C user, then you shall charge it, because they will be very disappointed to see that their plants doesn't grow as fast, and they would think it's a very bad product. For farmers, it's a little different, because you can train them to use it correctly. They can apply in the fall, non-charge, so that they and then they put a crop. They see the crop in the spring, so then it's okay. You have time, but you have to be careful on the market that you are targeting and how you market your product. If it's a ready-to-use product, then you need to charge it. For agriculture, I mean, for soil.
Thank you, Suzanne. And that you're speaking the same language I've been saying around here quite a bit with the use of biochar and soils. So glad to be validated. Misty has been very patient with her question.
No, I'm enjoying. What I was going to just mention was moisture is a real big deal, and it's a reality when you're really got biochar in your hands. And there is no dry biochar moving. Not really, not to the farm. There's no freaking way. Plus, in the air, in its natural form, it's constantly drinking. And so you're fighting, especially in Oregon, we're fighting that, but it in a good way, because it literally wants to take off as well. And so I feel like that's sort of one of those moisture content and weight. We don't move by weight. You must talk in volume when you're really moving it to the land, and it just changes so much. And I just was going to give a little for the super sack. We move a lot in super sack, which is really about 1.5 yards in that super sack, and we sell it at retail for $300. So just to kind of be transparent and give you an insight, not a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'm still moving it in just demonstration, but that's the truth. And it's always at least, I would say 30% moisture or more.
Well,
and this is a very weird gap in communication between where I'm getting it out of the old actions of the mill, and when it comes to me, they have to get such a fight to get it dry. They're giving it to me, take it and dry it, and kind of come up with a moisture content and a weight, but it is way off in data because it's just way off in data. And so I feel like that's a very relevant thing I have to deal with. And it's a part of the world of biochar.
Thank you, Misty. I will add on what you said, and I will contradict you a little bit. We use biochar for drying material, for pelletizing different materials for agricultural purpose. And so we want the biochar to be super dry in this condition. And in other application, they want it very dry. And when it's dry, it has to be to follow what you said, Misty, that it was very dusty. So it has to be bag. You cannot transport that when it's super dry. It's not. And when you are in very hot country, where it gets to above 100 degrees C, and you transport that, the risk of fire is too high. So, but still, there are some applications when you need it very dry, and or the client want it dry because they want to control the water content. And so you have to bag it, and you cannot bag it in, bag it a super big, a super sack is good, but if you try to bag it in even bigger containers, you have a risk of fire. So you have to be very careful about that.
Hey, Jim.
And Misty, your price is about the same as I've seen around, and someone else mentions the same thing in Missouri. Spot on, and that's part of our predictions for our own biochar production at the city of Minneapolis.
What is it?
And Mike Smith down in Texas is asking, I'll get back to you, Suzanne, is asking if anyone has studies on using biochar in municipal retention ponds. And Dan from UK did give him a link, but Suzanne, I don't know if you have any more information on that.
Yes, we did for municipal tank, and we did for plants, for agri-food plants, that the pond of washing fruits and veggies, and we use in this kind of things. And you have to be really, really careful in the ratio of, you have to differentiate the different type of carbon that you have into it, which usually we don't do that much for agricultural soil. So you need to know your fixed carbon, your volatile, and your organic based carbon, and you have to equilibrate with different nutrients into it. And the particle size as well has to be super homogeneous so that it flows very well. It removes the smell, it absorbs the nitrogen, it helps to keep the nitrogen into it. And so the design of it, it's specific to this treatment plants. So it depends, the flow, how long that they keep that, and you have to be sure it will flocculate when they flocculate everything else. So it's different consideration of this biochar. The density per se of the particles is important as well.
No, it's fantastic. And that's a strong interest of the city of Minneapolis, Mike. We are looking at right now as well within our surface waters and sewers for the surface water ponds.
Wow.
And Marshall would like to follow up on, like to respond on the question that he didn't ask.
Yeah, right. Well, not really. What I want to do is I want to give a testimonial to Suzanne Allaire. Suzanne and I go way back. I think she is phenomenal scientist, and she's really one of the foremost experts in the world on biochar. The last time I saw her, I think I was in Europe with her. But in any case, I do think that she did a great presentation, and I think if anybody here is getting into biochar, I always make two recommendations. One is get somebody like Suzanne to help them. That's number one. And of course, the other thing is if you want to read up on something, there's a great book by Albert Bates and Kathleen Draper that's about 7 years old called Burn, Using Fire to Cool the Earth. Talks about 100,000 markets of biochar. And of course, when I and Suzanne met back in, I think it was Malta, where we were. Back then, it was just getting started, and people really didn't understand. Everybody thinks biochar is like, you go to the doctor and you ask the doctor for penicillin. Nobody does that. And what Suzanne does is says, no, you got to check it out. She can check things out. She's very good at that. She has the lab capabilities. I forgot in the university in Canada, she's really good. So I recommend Suzanne highly. Use her if you need things checked out from a lab point of view, but also with her expertise in biochar. I've known her for a long time. She's fabulous. So keep up the great work, and thanks, Suzanne, for this great presentation that you did today.
Thank you, Marshall.
No, thank you, Suzanne. And Marshall says, likewise, your reputation precedes you as well as one of the outstanding people. And if anyone's interested, I do have an autographed copy of that book up on my upstairs here. So, but we have one final question from Angeline, and this is: how should shippers prepare for the mandatory Class 4.2 dangerous goods status when moving bulk volumes between companies?
I don't know.
I have an answer for that. We already do it.
Marshall.
So what we do, there's special bagging techniques that people are not really familiar with. And I'm just going to give a brief background. We did a project with the almond board, and then out in California, there's 600 almond growers, mostly in California. And they have about 70% of the world market in almonds, and they have about 95% of the market in the United States. We told them to not put biochar on the back of tractor trailers in large bags. They did a torrefaction system, not our pyrolysis system. And then they did that, and they stored I think 2 tractor trailer loads of biochar, and they did put 30% moisture content into it after they made the biochar. And then they bagged it, and they put it on their property. Luckily, it wasn't too close to their building, and it exploded. And so we had told them, had they followed our approach, it wouldn't have happened. What we do is we have an approach where we take the super sacks, and we have a special type of super sack, and we infuse it with nitrogen. Nitrogen makes it inert, and you have to make sure that you put it in a special container so that it doesn't get punched by a forklift or something like that, so it doesn't, puncture the bag. But it works really well, and it meets those classifications. So just so you know, it does meet the classifications. We are shipping biochar around the world. So if I can ship it on a boat and in that format, the shippers will take it. In the beginning, they didn't, but now they do.
Oh, thank you.
That's really
thank you, Marshall. The other thing is that another way, some people use the same equipment as for cotton, because when the cotton they are in the form of a ball before they are put into fabric, they have the same kind of reaction to transportation. So some of the people use the same type of bagging, and actually they remove the oxygen by replacing with nitrogen. So it's very similar to cotton, if some of you know about cotton transportation.
I have one comment from Azat in Turkmenistan, and he's looking to explore a method for processing organic waste to produce biochar for agricultural use. And just putting that out there for the group, if somebody has information, would like to connect with Azat, that would be very much appreciated. And Azat, it's fantastic to have you here. And Emmanuel is asking us, to what extent do biochar properties and microbiological interactions control the selective removal of micropollutants in wastewater, considering the different biomass-derived biochars can target different pollutants? And he did a similar research, but for hydrochar, and has the link. But do you have any comment on that, Suzanne?
Yeah, actually, it comes back to some of the work we did earlier, but with Marshall and other work we did. For when we look at the biochar, the sorption capacity of the biochar has different processes with which it can sorb the contaminants. And depending on how the contaminant is structured, the molecule, the charge, and the surface of this molecule, then the biochar can sorb it through different processes, one or the other process. But some molecules are not sorbed by biochar. So you have to be careful when we say that we are gonna clean the water, we may clean maybe 90% of what is there, and the 10% may never fix on the char because it has a different structure, a different type of molecule, is a different charge. So you have to, before claiming that you can clean it up, and activated carbon is the same thing. Don't think that activated carbon can solve everything. That's not true. So oftentimes the biochar can be complementary to activated carbon. So you have to look at what is in there and what your biochar that you have can do on it. So and the more it's cooked, the more it will look like the activated carbon, but doesn't mean that the less cooked doesn't sorb. It just sorb in with different processes. So you have to look first, it's what contaminant do I want to sorb.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. We are at our time here, but I want to appreciate that. Everybody's great questions, great discussion. I knew this would be a lively discussion, and great to see the participation we have from around the world. But I want to say thank you very much to our speaker, Suzanne. We've been working a long time, and we're honored to have you here today. Again, want to mention about Minnesota Biochar Initiative. Check out our website, follow us on LinkedIn, and please consider joining. Next month, we will be joined with a speaker from Ghana, who's actually getting his PhD here at Purdue in the United States. But thank you, Dr. Cecilia, for the recommendation. But we'll be having Biochar Innovator Society talking about their operations in Western Africa next month. So I'm very excited. And Dr. Cecilia is working on a lot of sustainable development in Kenya, and I would love to have her on sometime as well, talking about her biochar work in Kenya and what they're doing for sustainable development. If you have a topic for biochar or for Char Talk that we'd like to present, please let us know. We'd be very interested. There's a lot of topics that we could come on, a lot of different rabbit holes we could go down during today's discussion that would warrant its own discussion. So please let me know if there's an opportunity, if you'd like an opportunity to speak on Char Talk. We would love to have you on here. We always appreciate having you here. And please send us a note if you'd like to be added if you're not on and would like to be added to the invitation list, please drop a note on the Minnesota Biochar Initiative website so we can get back and have you added. Stephanie, do you have any last words to add for us?
I think that is it. I did drop a link for those that are interested, want to hear a little bit more about us, look at past Char Talks. They're online as well. And then there's information about membership there. And of course, you can always reach out to Jim, myself, or Katie, who is not with us today, to learn more. I'm going to stop recording.